x minus 5 equals x plus 7. The first step is to distribute 3 into the x and negative 5. After the distribution of the 3, you should end up with this equation, 3x minus 15 equals x plus 7. Our next step is going to be to simplify the equation by adding 15 to both sides, as well as subtracting x from both sides. After adding and subtracting, you should be left with 2x equals 22. The final step is solving this equation is to divide both sides by 2. Giving you the answer x equals 11.
Moving on to solving quadratic equations, we are going to give you 2 ways to solve it. First, I'm going to go over how to solve it using the factoring method. We are going to start with the equation x squared plus 7x plus 12 equals 0. But first, we are going to look for 2 numbers that multiply to 12 while also adding up to 7. The 2 numbers that satisfy this condition are 3 and 4. Now we just simplify, getting the answer that x can equal either negative 3 or negative 4. Just as a reminder, this method will not always work. For times that this method doesn't work, there is completing the square, which will be explained later in this video. We are now going to look at another method of doing quadratic equations called completing the square. This method will work 100% of the time when you are faced with a quadratic equation. We are going to use the same equation as the previous problem to show that it can be used in all cases. The first step in solving this equation is to isolate the x from the rest of the equation. Next, we are going to take half of the b value, which in this case is 7, and then square it. Since we are adding it to one side of the equation, we also need to add it to the other side. From here, we need to simplify the equation further. We subtract 12 from both sides, which is equivalent to 49 over 4, and are left with x plus 7 over 2 squared equals 1/4. Our next step is to square root the equation, which will give us plus or minus 1/2. The final step is taking both of the 1/2s and subtracting the 7 over 2. As you will see, the answer comes out to be negative 3 and negative 4, the same as the previous method.
The final thing we will be going over today is how to solve absolute value equations. We will be using the equation below as an example for this section. The first step is to split the equation. Since it is an inequality, the sign needs to flip on one of the equations. This is how you get that x plus 7 is less than or equal to negative 4. Next is simply to simplify the equations, which will give you that x is greater than or less to -3 and x is also less than or equal to -11. Graphing the equation on a number line is next, and since there is an equality in the less than or equal to, we close the dot, which signifies that the answer will be equal to those numbers.